Youth are on the streets. Forge aspirants looking for jobs in the Indian Army and other defense forces are protesting wide and open in many parts of the country. And these protests now are gathering steam. They all just have one demand. Roll back Agneepath. There is also a demand being made by the BJP's own ally in the state of Bihar, that is the JDU. Now do remember, these protests first started from Bihar. And from Bihar, they have now spread to Uttar Pradesh, to Haryana, to Rajasthan, Uttarakhand and even Delhi. Violence reported from Chhapra, from Jahanabad, from Munger, from Nevada in Bihar, where these protests intensified for the second straight day. Rail traffic, road traffic affected in several parts of the state, including what we saw in Buxar, where more than 100 young men literally stormed the railway station. They squat on the tracks, refusing to get up, blocking the onward journey of the Patna-bound Jan Shatabdi Express for nearly 30 minutes. In Begusarai, you had the army aspirants, many of them who are NCC cadets, who staged a demonstration at the Mahadev Chowk. They refused to get up here also. They were carrying a huge poster inscribed with the demand for the withdrawal of the scheme. In the Kaimur district of Bihar, protesters set fire to a train at the Bhabua Road railway station. In Ara, the police reportedly had to fire tear gas shells at these protesters who had gathered at a railway station. We saw, a lot of these youngsters protesting by lying down on the railway tracks in Jahanabad and Buxar districts. Hundreds of these agitators also blocked the National Highway 83 in Jahanabad. They burned tires, demanding again the scrapping of the scheme. In Haryana, hundreds took to the streets in Bilaspur, in Sidrawali areas of Gurugram and Rewari against the Agnipath Scheme. The protesters blocked traffic here on the Gurugram-Jaipur highway. They held a protest at the Bilaspur Chowk. Let's move to Uttar Pradesh. In UP's Unnao, in Shuklaganj, in Bulandshahr, large number of aspirants gathered to protest. Rajasthan, Uttarakhand have also seen dramatic protests. Protests also reported from Nanglo in Delhi. And it is now widening as per the last reports trickling in. Now, these are largely aspirants who are waiting for the defense recruitment process to start for at least 2 years now. They've been waiting. They are now upset with the major changes that have been introduced by the Agneepath Scheme. The aspirants here have a number of concerns, particularly when it comes to the length of the service, no pension provisions for those who exit, and the 17.5 to the 21 age restriction that now makes many of them ineligible. They are asking, what do we do now? Where do we go? Now, the Agnipath Scheme has already stoked a huge debate, not just on the streets like you have seen, but even lawmakers within the ruling BJP, its allies like the JDU, and in the opposition. They are all questioning the intentions of the government. Many retired army veterans have also chosen to speak out against this move. Now, the opposition's attack has also become sharper. A combative Congress party has attacked the government with Rahul Gandhi warning that Agnipath will reduce the operational effectiveness of the armed forces, whose dignity and valor, he says, must not be compromised. Congress General Secretary Priyanka Gandhi, she's also hit out at the government, and she's asking why it was making recruitment in the army, quote unquote, its laboratory. The former Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, BSP Supremo, in a series of tweets, she claims that the government is limiting the soldiers' tenure to 4 years here to do away with benefits of pension in the army and government jobs, and hence, she says it needs to be rolled back. SP Supremo Akhilesh Yadav has also reacted, and he says the scheme may prove fatal for the country's future and its youth. Arvind Kejriwal says he stands with the youth, their demands must be heard by the government. Similar sentiment being echoed by Tejasvi Yadav. The government has announced on June the 14th that recruitment to the three armed forces will be under this National Agneepath Scheme. It is doing away with regional quotas, but it just stops short of using the same scheme for officer recruitment at the last moment as per reports. Now, according to the scheme, 46,000 youth in the 17.5 years to the 21 years age bracket will be getting a 4-year tenure that includes a 6 months training. And at the end of these 4 years, as many as 75% of these Agniveers will be retired without pension or gratuity, but they get an exit package. Now, the government claims that this is transformative. This is going to herald a tectonic shift towards making our forces in sync with the changing times. But then why are the youth protesting? What are their concerns? What do they want? Point number one. A lot of these aspirants have been waiting for recruitments despite having cleared the required physical tests. And like I said earlier, the recruitments in the armed forces have been on hold at least for the last 2 years. So they were hoping that the recruitments will begin now. But now with this scheme, many of these aspirants could be ineligible. So what do? Point number 2, the Agnipath scheme has an age criteria of 7.5 to 21 years. So what happens to those who already crossed this age and they were waiting for selection? Where do they go now? Point number 3, after 4 years of service, only 25% of these soldiers will be retained, who can go on to serve 15 years in the non-officers rank. The question, what happens to the others? Where do they go? What jobs will they get? Point number 4, those who exit get no pension, get no gratuity. So under fire, the government has also now tried to allay these concerns, allay these fears as the protests continue to rage. Working on a publicity overdrive, the government has released what it calls is a fact check for those aspiring to join the armed forces. It also alleges that the youth is being quote-unquote misguided. Union Home Minister Amit Shah has also assured that the ex-Agniveers will be given priority in the Central Armed Police Forces, that is the CAPF, and the Assam Rifles. Various chief ministers of BJP-ruled states have also tweeted to tell us that how these ex-Agniveers will be prioritized in recruitment in the state police and related jobs. So the most important question, given the nature of the pushback, what will the government do? What options does it have? Is it going to be willing to scrap this altogether as the aspirants want? Can it put this on the back burner? Or will it continue to push it aggressively like it's doing right now? See, for the moment, the agitation appears to be spreading. With unemployment already being a big issue, this latest protest might turn out to be a huge headache for the government. Already there is some semblance of the Kisan Andolan that is visible, and with the opposition parties pitching in now, it has already taken a political turn as well. So we'll have to see what happens as far as the story goes. It's a contentious issue. We see the protests that continue to spiral and the government is firefighting. We'll track that story and much more for you as always here on the News You Don't Get. I hope you've all subscribed to my YouTube channel. In case you haven't done that, it's a request. Please go ahead, share this video far and wide with more of your colleagues, your people, your family, friends, to help them understand what the issue is really about. In the comment section below, do let me know what you think of the entire issue. For the moment, thank you.